Welcome back to the Sports Fix, live across the Sports Fix radio network. No, Axel, let me tell you, it'll take more than a fifth of night train to help me forget the disaster that my fantasy football season has begun. I don't know if the night train can get it done. We may have to go Fireball. We may have to go, 151. We may have to go to that other level here as I sit 2-6. If you're with me, then I'm with you. I'm wallowing in misery right with you, man. I'm telling you. I'm that guy that's made 57 transactions, but none of them work. I make them all a week too early, a week too late. Doesn't matter. It's one of those seasons. That's why BJ Rudell joins us to help you work your way through it. And if nothing else, you can commiserate with me as we, hey, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to switch my focus. Not yet, because I'm going to win out. I'm going to win out. Now, if that plan goes awry, then I'll come up with a different plan. And we'll just switch our focus to the consolation bracket of the tournament. But right now, I'm just going to win out. That's the plan. I'm sticking to it. That's my story. If you don't believe me, I don't care. Let's talk about it with BJ Rudell, author of Fantasy Football for Winners, host of Fantasy Football for Winners, here with us each and every week, Thursday right here. We get you ready just in time for Thursday night football, get you all set, the latest slate of fantasy football action. So let's do that. You guys, by the way, you can't call, but you can ask your questions right now. Are you in a miserable pickle like I am? You got a lot of bye weeks going on now. There's going to be a lot of people scrambling. How do I do this? Who do I fill in there? Hit us up right now with your questions. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. And BJ Rudell, who's joining us next at BJ Rudell. You can tweet with us, not just now, not just live, but anytime, right up until game time, anytime, with your questions, and we'll get them answered for you. And you can email thesportsfix@AOL.com. Let's go to the phones right now. Don't forget, Eddy Jansen, More Than a Fan Cleveland, coming up to wrap things up next segment, talking some Cavaliers hoops, getting you ready for tip-off. But right now, let's go to the phones. BJ Rudell, author and host, Fantasy Football for Winners, my man, in the co-pilot's chair. BJ, how you doing?
Good, Jared. Sorry to say, tough first half of the year for you. But,
tough.
Tough. It's never too late to turn it around. I like your confidence.
I mean, what else am I supposed to do? Like I said, I'm on the air, so I can't break out the night train just yet, man. It's tough. I'm seriously. My season has fallen off. Matter of fact, during the break, somebody in the chat room was like, "Not even BJ can save you." Like, I can't even argue because, yeah, my season is quickly falling apart. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Whether it's injuries, and like I said,
This is Fantasy Football Today on CBSSports.com.
Fantasy Football Today, presented by Volkswagen.
See, that's Fantasy Football Today. Let me go ahead and shut that up real quick. Anyways.
Fantasy owners know that.
It's still going.
Week 8.
It won't shut up. There we go. Hey, all right. Anyways, see, that's how my season's football players and stuff, just random injuries between changes, all kinds of stuff. I made a couple of moves this week to try to short. You should have seen my box score for last week. I had 5 skill positional players all get me in the single digits. I'm telling you, it was and I was up against Gronkowski at the same time. So him and his 40+ point game over there, but it was just it was a disaster for me last week, and I'm not really happy with where I'm at going forward, considering that half my team's on a bye here this week. But I made a trade. I did trade. Somebody wanted Trey Mason, so I traded I was able to get Brandon Oliver, so I will at least solidify my starting running back for a week or two until, of course, he goes back to the bench coming up, and then I'll be figuring out what to do next. Talk to me, man. There's a lot of people where I'm at here, man. What do you do in the middle part of your season when it's too early to give up, but you really need to make something happen?
Well, you can't overreact. There's a ton of guys every week coming available, coming online, that didn't look good the week before, and people need to pounce. I mean, look what happened last week. Martavis Bryant out in Pittsburgh gets you about 22 whatever fantasy point. Dante Moncrief 100 yards to the TD. Those guys were Bryant was coming back after being eased back in. He's going to usurp Marcus Wheaton as the number 2 guy in Pittsburgh. Moncrief has taken over for an injured Reggie Wayne. You got Brian Quick going down in St. Louis. Stephen Bailey now slides into the number 2 slot, a receiver for the Rams. Jonas Gray comes out of nowhere. gets you about 8 fantasy points.
I got
him. Looks pretty good.
I grabbed him this week, actually, Jonas Gray, because
there
I said,
go.
You know what? In a week or two, I think he'll be able to replace Oliver when he goes to the bench.
Yeah, hopefully he's here to stay. You never know. Bill Belichick's pretty fickle, but the point is, there's guys like Brandon Whedon. Romo goes down. If Romo can't play, Whedon instantly becomes, I think, a top 15 starter just because of the matchup and because of the weapons he has. I mean, DeMarco Murray can get him down to the 10-yard line, and we pop it over to Bryant or Terrence Williams or Jason Witten. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for people to still rack up points, maintain the same value they've had all the time, because the reality is teams are still scoring 20, 24 points a game. It's just instead of the Calvin Johnsons of the world and instead of the Adrian Petersons of the world racking up those points, you got to look elsewhere. And the key, the difference maker is if you stay ahead of the curve, that's how you do it. I'll give you one example. This morning at 8 a.m., I posted on my fantasy football blog on Facebook, Fantasy Football for Winners. It's got over 1,500 likes. People reading it, people commenting on it, people sending me messages about it, asking advice. And I gave very clear piece of advice first thing this morning. I said, trade for Jeremy Hill, the Bengals backup running back. Now, this is the guy, there's no word yet that Gio Bernard's not playing on Sunday, but he's got a hurt collarbone, got a hip pointer, and the reality is Cincinnati can win without Gio Bernard for 1 week. Now is the time, before other people catch wind of it. It's still not even 9 a.m. Go out, trade for Jeremy Hill. You don't have to give up much for him at this point. Jeremy Hill is racking up like 6 fantasy points a game. So it's not like people who aren't paying attention are thinking, oh, I need this guy. And he's available in over 22% of ESPN leagues. So if he's available in yours, pick him up. 2 hours later, Chris Mortensen from ESPN reports that Cedric Pierman, the third stringer in Cincinnati, has been practicing this morning with the expectation to be. So further, this is how you do it. You got to do it day in, day out, player by player. Spot the guys who are looking like they may not play, who's backing them up, trade for them, or pick them up. And before you know it, you get a guy. I think Jeremy Hill is going to be a 20 fantasy point guy this week. He's huge. And anyone who was able to take advantage of that before 9 a.m., before the news hit around 11, got a steal, whatever trade they made.
I hear you, my man. That's funny. I was one of the guys on the list that I was going to ask you about when I saw the word that Bernard is not practicing and may not play here, man. Hill was a guy that I wanted to ask you about, and Gray as well. I've got Shane Vereen, so I'm sitting there watching the Patriots, and they're, we putting 50 points on the board, but we can't involve Shane Vereen in this offensive game plan at all. I'm like, come on, what Jonas Gray, really? So I went out there and I did snatch him up but you can't tell. That's the problem that I'm having with these doggone New England Patriots, man, is you can't, because they don't care. Because first, Bill Belichick can care less what you're doing in fantasy football. He's trying to win a football game. If he's going to throw it to if the tackle eligible this week may be the guy who's going to catch 5 touchdowns. It's whatever he decides to do. So you never know which back. Is it going to be Vereen? Is it going to be Gray? Is it going to be this other guy? Is it going to be some dude you never heard of 3 days ago?
And the method to that, I think, is that Belichick knows that if you keep defenses off balance, then it's going to be harder to coach against them. So if defenses coming into a game have no idea who the main guy is going to be, and Belichick has already drawn up a bunch of plays for tight end Tim Wright or for Brandon Bolden, they're now their third stringer in the backfield. No one's expecting it. No one really knows how to adjust to it. You see them, if you see Bolden and Gray in the backfield, 9 out of 10 times you're going to assume Gray's going to get it. What happens if Bolden gets 15 carries? You don't know how to. You're already stacking up on Gray's side, expecting him to get it. So, it's that kind of keeping defenses off balance that also keeps fantasy owners off balance. And the solution to that is identify which teams, and the Patriots are really the worst at it or the best at it, are hard to predict. I mean, I think Vereen's still a stud running back, and he needs to be an every week starter because most weeks he's going to be terrific. But there's going to be guys in other teams, in other positions who are going to be much more predictable day in and day out. They're getting 10 targets. They're getting 18 carries or more. And those are the guys you want to focus on.
I'll tell you, man. I mean, and I hear everything that you're saying. And even now, looking ahead at my season. I go, man, it's not completely over. I'm looking at my team. I mean, I've got the number one quarterback. I've got some good people in my various main positions. It's just I have not been able to put the right combinations. And then when I do, somebody will get hit. The injury bug will get you. I cleared the Rams running backs out, by the way, doing what talking about, looking ahead. When I saw the offensive line in trouble, and then Stacy's carries are dropped, but they're giving some to Mason, some to Cunningham. Nobody's doing anything with them because their offensive line is all jacked up. I said, you know what? I don't want anything to do with any of these running backs on St. Louis now, because I don't care who ends up being the number one guy. I don't know who you can guarantee. It's just literally flip a coin. Who's going to catch more passes? Who's going to get 7 carries instead of 6? Because they're just splitting it up, but nobody is being effective right now. So I said, you know what? I got rid of Mason and Zach Stacy.
I think that's a smart move. I got rid of Stacy in my league. It's very clear it's going to take a lot for one of those guys to be the clear-cut guy. And with all the talent that's available on waivers this week, there's no reason to hold on to a guy who has a 1-in-3 or 1-in-4 chance of being a major contributor.
Yep. Absolutely. And I'm 100% behind that one. I said, you know what? I don't care where I drafted Stacy. I don't care what I think Mason may do. And like I said, I was able to trade. Hey, I'll take Trey Mason. I said, cool, I'll take Brandon Oliver, man. There we go. It'll at least get me through for a week or two here. And the running back has really been the bad position for me. Other than that, I mean, I've been able to hold water. Otherwise, Andrew Luck props you up most weeks anyway, because he's just been a beast here this season. In our league, he's averaging 32, 33 points a game, something like that. But, again, a lot of season left to go here. I'm 2-6, which means we've got 6 games. Basically, I've got to win out and then hope that a few other people stumble for me to make the upper half of the playoffs in our league. And this is the part of the season, too, where some people start to pack it in because they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's one of the reasons that I broke the prizes up in our league the way I did, because even now, my son, he's only a game better than I am. He goes, hey man, worst comes to worst, Dad, I'm fighting for the ring for the other bracket. I said, exactly. I said, hopefully that keeps everybody playing, because they're not out of it no matter what. You could be in dead last place and you're still not out of it. So hopefully that was a good idea there, because I worry about people packing it in early, and it really starts to affect the second half of your league when guys aren't putting their right starters in. And that all the bye weeks are left, and then guys are practically getting free weeks throughout the second half. It really makes it tough to have a good second half.
Yeah, you don't like to see that. You want to know that everyone's in it and everyone's involved. And we talked about that at the end of last season. But fantasy football, it's tough. Like, I looked at one of mine. I'm in 2 leagues, and one of them, I've lost 2 games by 2 points. And these are, it's a PPR. So a typical week you get about 120 points. So lose by 2, things don't go right. And you can't look at it and say, oh, if only I did this or if only I did that. You got to pick yourself back up, look at the next week, size up your players. Am I putting up the best team I can? And the key is, don't chase points. I've talked about this before. Don't look at a guy that gets you 10 points the last week, or some guy on waivers, and automatically, just because they got 10 points or 15 points, that means pick them up. I had a guy in my office tell me the other day, it was actually a few weeks ago, he said, I'm dumping Keenan Allen. I don't want him anymore because he wasn't doing well. He was chasing points. He was trying to pick up other receivers who were kind of one-hit wonders and get each one right. If you want to go ahead and just blindly pick guys that you think are going to be great, you're probably not going to do well. You have about a 1 in 20 chance, 1 in 10 chance that you're going to get half those guys right. So what's better is hold on to the great players that you have, because those great players usually rebound. And sure enough, I talked to the guy last week. He said, oh yeah, I dropped Keenan Allen. And Keenan Allen had a great week last week. Keenan Allen's going to continue to be a terrific player. So people can't get caught up in chasing points. You got to look at your lineup. You got to look at who they're playing against. You got to understand what are people saying. Experts in the industry and fantasy industry and the NFL, and major networks and things like that. I try to do that for my followers